Newsflash, you are not untouchable. Okay, doxing is like a crazy example because it's super illegal, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of influencers across multiple platforms who have done some very questionable things, and they expect to get away with it, or, you know, people give them a pass. But I have had enough. We have to start holding people accountable for their actions. Yo, this fly is like going crazy right now. It sounds like a bee. Like, what the? Your computer screen or your phone screen or your tablet or whatever you post from, a Nokia, is not a shield. You are not invincible because you have millions of followers. You are not exempt because you are making silly little videos. Do y'all hear this fly? I wonder if the mic is picking it up because it's so loud. People are getting hurt, whether that be emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever. People are getting hurt, and this needs to stop. Like with David Dobrik. There's way too many examples of him using his friends as stunt doubles in his videos. It's mind-boggling.
Just do it, bro! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Personally, I feel like just because your friends or cast or whatever you want to call them has consented to be in these crazy videos does not mean that, you know, you're not putting them in some kind of harm's way. I think that some influencers get so caught up in, like, you know, putting out shock value content or just like pushing content out so much that they'll do anything, you know, like swinging their friend from a crane with no safety precautions. Just a thought. And this is a perfect example of being untouchable because there's a lawsuit, and rightfully so. Like, you can't just almost crack someone's skull open and bust their eyeball and expect people to not be, you know, upset or angry at like your negligence. Even though Jeff Wittick may have agreed to being on that crane does not make what the outcome is right. David Dobrik is just one example of the many people who have either put themselves or other people in harm's way, and that's very, very telling. Thankfully, in his case, no one was killed, but it doesn't always play out that way. In 2021, a YouTuber named Timothy Wilkes was and killed because him and his friend were doing a robbery prank where they were dressed as bank robbers. You know, they had black hoodies on, ski masks, they had a giant duffel bag of money, and they were wielding around butcher knives. And someone who wasn't in on this joke, which I think that was the point, struck him down. And that's really sad because it just goes to show that, like, this grind culture on YouTube, or like just this need to put out things that even if it doesn't have some kind of, you know, negative connotation in the video, it can still end up negative. You have to really be careful with what you put out there and what you do, because even if this did turn out a different way and he got out of this unscathed, someone else could have wanted to emulate this kind of content, and that situation could have happened to them. Now, I'm not trying to say that that was his fault that it played out that way. Obviously, he had no control. No one knew that someone would have a gun in that situation. But it's to prove the point that we have to start thinking before we do. Because you never know what could happen. You just never know. Or we can even look at SS Sniper Wolf. The amount of things this woman has said out of her mouth. I'm not sure why it has taken this long for her to finally receive some kind of karma, but here it is. It's not that people haven't been calling her out on the stuff she said, from homophobia, transphobia, racism, body shaming, but remember when I brought up doxing earlier? Super illegal. Yeah. Well, you can add that to your Sniper Wolf bingo card. I believe on Friday the 13th, this past Friday, which is really ironic to me that it was Friday the 13th, she doxed Jack's Films. And where's the thought process? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Turn this on. Turn it on!
Like, we've upgraded from microaggressions to literal criminal activity. To me, it just seems like she didn't and still doesn't care about the things that she does or says. And I feel like it's because she has people backing her up. And mind you, her audience is mainly like children. But that gives people enough excuse to, like, you know, to validate their actions. Like, it just seems like she doesn't care, because I have this audience who sticks by me, so I'm gonna do what I do, and I'm not gonna change. And even after she doxed him, she said something along the lines of, like, it wasn't that serious, or like, I didn't have any ill intent. But you showed this man's address and his cross street. Just because you don't have any ill intent does not mean that there is someone out there that doesn't wish harm or want to do harm to him and his family. And, you know, it's not like she doesn't have any other legal troubles going on, so why not start a new case? I think that these influencers need to remember that you're interacting with real people. These are real people whose lives have just as much meaning as yours does. Just because they have some kind of internet persona does not make them less real than you are. You are interfering with real lives, real humans. And I just think there needs to be some kind of rules, or at least enforced rules, because there are rules on this platform, but they don't seem very enforced. But there needs to be some kind of real repercussion for these kinds of people, whether that be like a channel strike, or deplatforming them, or defaming them, or, you know, actual police getting involved, or even, you know, apologizing and meaning it. And don't even get me started with the sister, the biggest sister on this platform, which I don't understand how he is still a top creator on this platform, where he has literally admitted to committing a crime multiple times. The same crime multiple times. Like, how do things like this fly on a platform where there are strict rules and guidelines? How do we allow people to be actual predators and thrive on the internet, and I make song covers and I get strikes? Not to sound salty, I just think there is something that's not connecting. The priorities are not straight. They're very curvy. Some people receive action and some people don't, and I really truly think that is based off of status. And you're probably thinking, well, doesn't that make James Charles untouchable? Doesn't that mean that he didn't face any repercussions? No, that's not true. Just because he is still on this platform does not mean he hasn't lost things. He has lost tons of subscribers, lost his brand deal with Morphe, and his channel was temporarily, which I won't get into that, but temporarily demonetized. And I know for his crime, or I don't want to call it a crime, allegedly, but for whatever he did, for it to be of that magnitude and there not be any kind of any kind of action that has been taken, rather other than him being demonetized, it just doesn't make sense. There has been people who have been accused of his alleged crimes and have been deplatformed like that, and then have also been found out to not have committed those crimes and are still deplatformed. But yet we allow actual predators to stay on these apps. Where's the logic? Your actions have consequences, or they at least should have consequences. So what I want people to take from this video is to honestly just be simply kind to people. Think about what you do before you do it, who it's going to affect, and just because it doesn't affect you does not mean it is not happening. And especially as influencers, because I don't want to say we, because I wouldn't consider myself an influencer, but influencers set the example, especially for younger people. They're very impressionable, so you can't do whatever you want. There are millions and millions of eyes on you at all times. And that's not to say that you can't do what you want in a sense of like, oh, I can't go down the street today. Obviously you can do that, but you can't just make anything. You need to, if you're going to express yourself on these kinds of apps, it needs to be carefully thought out, because like I said, there are always eyes on you. You can't live with the mentality of I didn't hurt anybody, or I didn't physically harm anyone, or it was a joke, because that's not the case for everybody. Just because you didn't swing on somebody or punch someone in the gut doesn't mean that you didn't hurt them in some kind of way. And a lot of people don't see that not everything is a prank. And even if it is, it can still hurt people. But just know, everything comes to the light, and you are not untouchable.